What's funny about art people is like we'll turn anything into a dance floor.
Yeah, there's this like radical sort of vulnerability that is necessary to do this, whether it is with each other or with our community.
We all learn about ourselves collectively and individually after that moment.
These spaces in nightlife, and especially for queer and trans people of color, like these spaces are kind of sacred.
There's no ego here. We're actually just, we both just want this best version of this night. This one night, this 1 hour even sometimes.
Every day it fills me with gratitude to know that people see the work and are inspired by it.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
How's it going? We were talking about heat.
Yeah, it's hot.
It's hot.
Probably it's the hottest pride.
Yeah.
One of the hottest prides I've ever experienced.
Yeah. How does that impact how you are programming this month?
Yeah, that's interesting. So in the past, when we've like hit like a big heat wave, we usually will, encourage people to drink lots of water, take breaks indoors wherever there's AC. And sometimes even we've asked venues to let people bring their own water bottles so people can like refill them as they need to. But for this particular Pride, luckily, like I think in the weekend it's gonna be a little bit more chill there.
Yeah. We try to do a bunch of like free outdoors programming every summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in years past it's been okay, but it's starting to feel a little more volatile, like not knowing which way it's gonna go.
Yeah.
You're hosting an event by the Hudson River tomorrow.
Yes.
Right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. It's Pride on the Pier with Hudson River Park. And it's on Pier 45, which is the pier off Christopher Street. And kind of fun for me. It's where I had my first kiss. So I love that pier. I really love that pier. Yeah.
It's so special.
You have a history with it too, Adam.
With the Christopher Street Pier? Yeah. I used to go there pretty often, like on weekends, a lot. After going to the gay center, like after going to the gay youth center on 13th Street, we would all walk over there and hang out for hours. Before it was like the super constructed, beautiful park that it is now. And after, too. And after as well. So, yeah. Been there many, many times. I love it there.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. Something that was also cool that happened this month is your proclamation. And I'm going to let you explain what that is and how you were informed of it, because we had a conversation about how none of us knew what that even was. So, yeah, I'll let you talk about that.
Chiose, which wow, that's really hard. Congratulations to him. He just won his seat again, his re-election. He's actually our city council member. And Papi Juice was actually born in Bed-Stuy in Chiose's district. So he texted me at the beginning of last month in May and was like, hey, like, you're part of my district and I know your 12th year anniversary is coming up and the city council would like to honor your contributions to the city of New York by honoring you with a proclamation. And then I was like, oh my God, amazing. Like, that's so cool. In my head, I was like, but what is that? Kind of like, I just didn't really I had to kind of like look it up. But it's essentially different parts of the government can decide who they want to honor with just like a little ceremony and the text, essentially. And that's what the proclamation is. It's just honoring an organization, a collective, an individual, just someone's contributions to culture, life, and community in New York City.
Right.
And so we got this proclamation from the City Council of New York.
Can you talk about the paper?
Yeah, it's really special. It's funny. They were clowning me the day of the proclamation because I was like treating it super precious. And it is a very precious piece of paper.
What does it say? The
actual content. I mean, it's a few paragraphs and it says it describes how city council is essentially declaring that because of our contributions to the community, they're recognizing just everything we've put in and kind of gets into the nitty gritty of like what our shape and format looks like. And then it's signed by a coalition of the council, the LGBTQ caucus.
Where's the paper now?
It's on a shelf at our studio in a bag, in another bag. And I'm terrified of it. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to look at it. I'm even scared of what's going on in the bag. Like I'm scared to open it. So that's been my last 2 weeks.
Yeah. Hope it gets a frame soon.
Yeah.
So, yes, Papi Juice is 12 years old, and you guys met on Tumblr, which is very of that era. And can you tell me about those Tumblr days and what compelled you about your platforms at the time?
Sure. I can say a little bit about. So Tumblr was a very special time, very special platform. Initially, it was a great place to like kind of gather your ideas and kind of like expose your most raw kind of just texts and images and whatnot. But yeah, I used to post a bunch, and I used to follow Oscar pretty heavily. And we had a lot of mutual friends I discovered when I first started following him. So we decided we were like, oh, we should hang out, and learned that we both lived in Bed-Stuy. We both had a bunch of mutuals, went to the same local bar, and eventually hung out and like started forming a friendship. And then at some point, Oscar was like, we should do an event together. And I was like, yeah, we should. Yeah.
Were you guys going out a lot together?
Yeah, a lot of New York City events, a lot of art events, a lot of like really crazy dive bar moments. Like, yeah. Yeah.
What were you noticing about the scene that made you think we need to do something?
Yeah, I think, for me, it was almost like there was so much opportunity at that time. There were already all these like really amazing events that were happening. And it was really cool to be a part of the scene in that moment because there's just space for a lot of things to happen. There was a lot of space for creativity, for artistic experimentation, for different kinds of music as well. Like, I think people were a little bit more adventurous at that time with their taste in music. Like they were more open to listening to different genres in one night than they are today. And so it was really cool time there was a lot of momentum to create. And I think that's why, and Adam and I have such different tastes in music. So I was like, this could be, and being a native New Yorker, I was like, Adam, like I'm, a transplant back then. It was just 14 years ago. I was just like, it would be cool to team up with someone from the neighborhood to do something in the neighborhood that activates like our different communities, but also the same community that we are part of. And yeah, that's kind of like what it felt like at that time.
When it came to curation, what kinds of things were you considering at the time?
Yeah, so at the beginning, it was just Adam and I for 6 hours. So in the first, I think first 5 parties, it was just the two of us. And then we started bringing in DJs soon after. And it was all people that, were part of our community at the time. And then also people that we just admired and were excited to be creating with, to be experimenting with. So, I think it was important for us that it was people that we knew and that we cared for, and they cared for us as well.
Sure. And this was before the cabaret law was appealed. So the first venue you started at, that was One Last Shag in Bed-Stuy, right? So can you talk about how you maybe had to be a little creative to throw parties there? And maybe for people who don't know, we can explain that the cabaret law in New York was basically a no dancing law. So you basically had to make it look like people weren't actually dancing. Yeah.
I'll say a little bit. Like when I think think they had seats in the front of the building. They had like booths in front of the big window outside. So it always looked like it was just kind of a chill, divey spot. But then there was a elevated stage in the back where there was also an entrance to the backyard and the bathroom line, which is where a lot of people dance. Don't ask me how we did it. People were dancing on the bathroom line. People were dancing in the neighborhood. It was a tight squeeze, but people really found a way to enjoy themselves like in this amazing tiny spot.
Yeah. What's funny about art people is like we'll turn anything into a dance floor. And technically, I think the way the bar got around no dancing was kind of like the area in front of the bathrooms was kind of where people would congregate. And you could probably maybe uncomfortably fit 30 people there.
Yeah.
Like 30 people's like sardine style.
Yeah.
And the bathroom doors would open outwards. So it really didn't look like a dance floor. It was not well designed at all. And I think we just made do with what we could.
Yeah, I mean, it had like a checkered floor.
Oh, yeah.
So it kind of looked like a dance floor, but it was actually the foyer to the bathrooms.
Yeah.
And that's how the venue got away with it at the time, for it to be like a designated dance floor. It was because if any inspector from the city came, the venue would just say, oh no, that's the foyer to the bathroom. There's no dancing allowed there. Nobody dances before the bathroom.
Social media was a lot different then. I mean, you guys started on Tumblr, and at that time, like 2017, I remember finding out about your parties through Facebook, like Facebook events, RIP. And yeah, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what promoting was like back then, how it was different.
When we first started, Oscar and I were doing all kinds of weird Photoshop magic, trying our best to whip something up over a course of a couple of days and like just push it out via Facebook events and text messaging and a lot of friends word of mouth. And thankfully, after a couple of events, we met Mo, who basically rescued.
I love the original posters. There's 3, I think. There's 3 or 5, and I have them like pretty handy, and they're iconic. They set the tone.
Yeah.
What were these Photoshop flyers?
It was.
I don't even know. I should have
It was very Tumblr.
It was very Tumblr. It was very like net art.
Net art 2013.
Yeah, that kind of vibe, like glitchy, but also like almost like film stills, but not. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Someone had a cracked Photoshop key that they were using, and I think they're timeless, to be honest.
Bring them back.
Yeah. Yeah. I also loved how centralized like Facebook events was. Everyone was on there. It was really, really easy to find, and it wasn't like at the whim of the algorithm the way it is now. Now it's like I feel like all my DJs know, like, unless you post a selfie, that poster's not going anywhere. And it wasn't like that. It was like you can go to the calendar and kind of find where you just see what was happening.
And you could just like leave the app.
Yeah.
You could just like find your event and close Facebook.
Yeah.
Whereas like Instagram kind of sucks you in to this like vortex. Like you're looking for an event and then you're DMing someone and then you're like, oh, look at this reel. And then you're like, wait, why was I even on this platform?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people sometimes get discouraged when they first start parties because it is very difficult to build a fan base. Did you ever feel that way? What was it like in the first few parties?
It's a constant sort of process and progress, like sometimes it feels like you take one step right and one step forward and you take 2 steps back. But ultimately, it really is just about like the trust that we have in each other to keep going. And also the sort of, this is why it's so nice to be in a collective. It's because when one of us can't show up, the other 2 show up, or when 2 can't show up, at least we know that there's one person that will show up. So I think, honestly, we have like saved ourselves in this work many times. In the beginning, it's particularly challenging because you're trying to find your voice. You're trying to find sort of your creative flow in how you're organizing yourself. There's a lot of like really boring stuff that unfortunately you have to do to get things done and make the job a little easier, and make the process a little easier. And it's all trial and error as well. Like, it wasn't something that we figured out in the first, second, third, even fifth year. It takes time to like sort of build these like workflow practices. And I think even as artists, I think we need that sort of like organization and those organizational skills to survive.
100%. Was there ever a moment where you're kind of questioning, do I still want to do this? Because I imagine when you're young and you're like, I want to start a party, I want to start a collective. It's really fun and you're hanging out with your friends, but there's probably a point where it starts to get real and you're like, oh, I also need spreadsheets. Mm-hmm. So was there ever a moment where you're, just, I guess, second guessing yourself?
Honestly, like pretty often.
Yeah.
Still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because I don't know if anyone's asked us that before or if we've ever talked about it. But yeah, for me, it tends to come up when I feel my friendship with these two challenged, where I'm like, okay, this project is extremely hard and we're bumping heads and it's getting a little like intense. And I kind of just miss who I want to talk to right now is my friend, but I have to talk to my like person, like, my collective. And that's really tough. And that's when I'm like, is it worth sacrificing the friendship for this thing? And we can always walk it back. I think as we've gone through, as we're hitting 12 years, I think it's clear that we can walk it back and we can always kind of find that center again or create a new center. But that's usually my litmus test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also want to talk about more about what it takes to run a collective for this long, because you're at 12 years now. That's longer than like some clubs exist. So, beyond, just the pure desire to host these spaces and build these experiences for people. I know we talked about spreadsheets. What are some other strategies that you have developed over the years to help you endure for this long?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like over communicating that happens, and then there's also a lot of like trust falls involved, right? We have to be able to trust each other and that we have the best intentions, the sort of leadership in the tasks that we're each doing, all of these different things. I think, what else would it be?
I feel like part of it is like I love being wrong. Like over 12 years, Papi becomes like, there are things that are very Papi, just things that are not. And I love the idea. Like, I feel like in the last 12 months, we've kind of like, things have come up and we've been like, I don't know that we would do that. And then something clicks and we're like, so let's do it. Like, that's why we should do it. Because it doesn't feel like something we'd normally do. Or it would be like an intense amount of work to pull off over the next few days. But okay, like look at the calendar real quick, like, okay, we can make that happen. And I think that kind of like willingness to like do things a little differently has made it, has kept us from getting stuck in a pattern.
Yeah, there's this like radical sort of vulnerability that is necessary to do this, whether it is with each other or with our community, because people have to feel comfortable enough to give us feedback, and we have to feel comfortable enough to accept it, because that's what keeps us together. That's what makes us grow more, like, and be more sort of accessible, and for the people that we've been working for this whole time for the last 12 years.
You also have a studio, which I found out about. And I don't know why this surprised me so much, but I just didn't know that. I didn't occur to me that you would need a studio, but it actually makes a lot of sense. You're been around for 12 years. You have all these different projects. Can you tell me, and you also got that in 2019. So can you tell me how that's like helped your process in any way?
Well, before the studio, we were meeting in our apartments or a coffee shop or whatever random place we needed to, a park sometimes. So I think having a central base for meetings and supplies and practice has been, and just hosting our friends sometimes.
Yeah. And neutral too.
Neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of that friend coworker relationship, that's where there's definitely like a power hour gossip in the beginning. We like chit chat it and then that's where we work. And it's nice. And my favorite thing to do is like, if someone's like, "Oh, what do you have to?" I'm like, "Oh, walking to the office," and it's just like a room, but it's just cute to feel like I'm commuting.
Right. And you also use the space a little bit during the pandemic for like merch. Can you talk about that?
Mm-hmm. Can you?
Yeah. So during it was during 2020. We actually couldn't really be in the space that much because everybody, we couldn't leave our houses. Everybody was like a little bit scared to be in like shared indoor spaces with other folks. But in 2020, we sort of were obviously really moved by the Black Lives Matter movement. And we came out with this shirt that was used as a fundraiser for 50 different Black trans lives organizations. And so we ended up raising about $15,000 to $17,000. And we ended up selling over 1,000 shirts.
Oh.
So there was moments in the studio where it was just like towers of like packaged shirts. And it was actually a really beautiful time in this twisted way because we were able to bring in friends like that were more than happy to come and help us pack. And it was like a really nice, we would all be wearing masks too, because it was that tough, that really just like scary time. And it was really nice because it served us as sort of a way to reconnect with a lot of like ex-collaborators or just close friends that we haven't been able to like share space with, but this gave us an excuse to work and also do something good.
When you came out of the pandemic, how did you feel like Papi Juice had changed?
A pandemic for me, and I think, for a lot of us, I think gave me a sense of my capability, especially in moments of supreme hardship and like emotional turbulence. And I think like that was really important for us as we all learned about ourselves collectively and individually after that moment. But in terms of engagement, like audience engagement and community engagement,
it was so tough because we always say like we were one of the clubs were one of the first things to close, and then everything closed at the same time. Yeah. But then one of the last to open. I remember even when the city had like a 5-stage plan for like restaurants, museums, clubs were nowhere on there, and as if it was a different sort of way for people to be in a room together, and we were just kind of in limbo. 18 months, just really had no clue, and we'd done a bunch of streaming things, and they were also well attended. So much generosity from people that were working from home, that kept their jobs, that kept us afloat, and a lot of like pro artist initiatives that raised a lot of funds for nightlife workers. Huge shout out to everyone that was a part of those, because we couldn't have done it without that. Mm-hmm. And I think we just missed our people. Like, the three of us are Papi Juice, but what's the three of us in a room without our crowd? And I think that's what stands out the most for me when that time apart. And I think a lot about like Papi Juice Returns was the first one back, and Elsewhere gave us 2 weeks notice that we could do it. And
how was that?
Yeah, and it was a 12-hour party.
Yeah, 4 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we talk about that?
That's a way of saying we are so back.
Yeah.
What was it like putting together that first party with so little notice.
Insane. It was so insane.
But it was also so exciting. I don't even remember the process. I think I kind of like blacked out and like reached out to like every single person that we had been loving in the last like month or so, or just some people that we were building closer relationships, just because it had to be almost like done over text. You know, usually we have to deal with agents. We have to like, we do it over email so as to, you know, keep things professional. But this time we were just like, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this?
Yeah. And like you said, everyone was so activated politically that year. And it's like, yeah, I wasn't clubbing with these people over the last year, but I was on the streets with them, protesting with them, organizing with them. And so those were the easiest texts to send. Like, hey, can you do this? And they'd be like, you know, less than 30 seconds. Like, yeah. And we had 2 days to actually put the lineup together. And we were 2 weeks out from the event, I remember. Yeah.
And it sold out in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, you know, at this point, I don't know if you would agree, but I feel like you guys are a collective, but I also see you guys as an institution. And I don't know how you feel about that wording, but I am curious to know when you realize you're doing more than just throwing parties, or did it just like start that way?
I would say that the day that we got the Trayvon Martin verdict, we had an event that night. And so this was in 2013 or 2014. And I remember you and I, Adam and I had talked about it. We had talked about it and we were like, hey, like, should we cancel tonight? I don't know if it's in the right tone to do something. But then we were like, we're just going to hold the space and see how people kind of come. And if they come and with what intention they want to come. And it was actually really beautiful. Like the space then transformed itself. Yeah, there was still dancing. There was still, you know, what you would deem as a like party, but it was also deeply like, it was like almost like a mourning. Like we all communed and mourned together the experiences of like Black folks in this country, you know, and it was really beautiful to witness that. And that was when the light bulb went off for me, where I was like, oh, like, you know, these spaces in nightlife, and especially for queer and trans people of color, like these spaces are kind of sacred. Like they can serve multiple roles and also are necessary to like a lot of parts of what make a person's well-being. I find, you know, it's community, it's socializing, it's strategizing, it's professional development, it's artistic sort of like innovation. There are so many things that can help you as an individual person once you walk into those doors. It just depends on your like openness to it, you know?
For sure. Would you say that your relationships have also helped you, you know, throughout your years? It's like looking at recent lineups, I see names like Bobby Beethoven, who used to be Total Freedom, Juliana Huxtable, Mike Q, who are all very much like considered and are still like groundbreaking artists, like of the tens. Yeah, I'm curious about, I guess, your relationship building over the years.
I feel like the artist's experience at Papi is really important to us. Whether it's as simple as fulfilling a rider or greeting them at the door or making sure stage manager is there to bring them back, spending time with them before they're set, asking if they need anything. You know, we all try to make a habit of walking artists up to the booth, especially in a giant room like the hall at Elsewhere. It can be overwhelming, and just being there, replenishing a water bottle, little things like that, hanging out in the backyard after, just chatting. I think like it's not just kind of like a, hey, come play, here's a couple, cut the check the next day, send you a 1099 in 6 months. It's like, no, like actually you're here. What can I do to make this better for you? And I think people enjoy playing Papi for that reason, is that like it is gonna be a very welcome and like warm experience, and I kind of want it to feel like in a very non-toxic way, but like very family like you're gonna come play with your cousins and like have the best time. And my favorite thing is when a DJ will stay way past their set. I'm like, you're still here? Yeah, and like
going.
sometimes with luggage, I'm like, you have a flight in the morning, like you need to go. And they're like reluctantly leaving. That's like the highest compliment to me.
Yeah. I actually DJ'd Papi Juice last year.
Yeah.
And I remember that. I remember Oscar greeting me as I opened, and that meant a lot to me because I feel like I understood how busy you were. It was during Pride. And yeah, you were very much on it. I think I was a little bit late. And you were like, it's okay. Like, do you want this? Do you want that? Here's the booth. Here's like the sound person. And I felt very taken care of. So thank you.
Good job, bro.
I know.
Yeah.
Unbiased
Nice.
reviews.
I know. Perfect follow through. Nice.
So as a collective, you guys have worked with brands before. So I'm always curious to know, are there certain things that you're considering when you're like working with brands? Are there any brands that like you will not work with because of your principles? How do you, just I guess maintain your political integrity while also working with brands?
I find that with brands, so often they're identifying us as something cool. And so what the real transaction that's on the table is, hey, can we have access to your audience? And I think for us, it's kind of like, well, no, like, let's talk first. Like, what are you trying to do? Is it free? Who is it for? What are the perks for anyone that's going to attend? How are you going to contact them? How are you going to communicate with them? I think like we're very protective in that way. And the thing I do love about it is that, living in a city like New York, there are so many activations and pop-ups, and, we might not be able to see a huge A-list star like front row on tour, but then you can see them at an intimate venue because a beverage brand has decided to like host it. And I feel like for us, a big part of that is like, can we get our people in to a really special experience? And if so, then we're super down.
How do you feel like your approach to curation has evolved with your heightened visibility in recent years?
I think we're taking more risks, honestly, in terms of curation. And I think, which was something that was super important to us when we started too, just like doing a little bit of unexpected ways of putting people together. I think for us also, like a curiosity for sound was something that we loved from the beginning. Like I mentioned, like Adam and I have very different tastes in music. And so from the beginning, we talked about how complex and diverse the taste of our communities are, And so it's the same with curation. We want to sort of keep people excited. We want to also not give opportunities to younger folks, but also give opportunities to folks that have been around for a long time that maybe haven't either been recognized or haven't very much recognized, and we would love to give them their flowers as well, So I think part of the also art of curation for us is there has to be a little bit of conflict. And conflict is not always bad. It just means that we care about something, and also it makes for an even better thing, It makes for an even better event. It makes for a better lineup and a better experience for everyone. And we have like the toughest conversations when we're coming up with a lineup together. sometimes I just want to kill him. You know? It's just we're not talking right now, even though but it lasts 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's like go for a walk.
Yeah.
Bathroom break.
Or bathroom break. We open the window. We put on music on.
Yeah.
We light incense.
Literally.
Yeah.
An exorcism.
Yeah. Just to move through the conflict, and then every time we come out of it, we're better for it. And every time we're like, hey, I'm sorry, I was not nice, or I should have worded that in this way. And then the other one will be like, oh, of course, yeah. I just know that we both care a lot about this. You know, we both care a lot about putting our best work and the best experience for our people.
Okay. You said that you and Adam have very different music tastes. Can we talk about that? What are you both interested in?
Well, when we first started, I used to refer to what I love to play as black barbecue music. And I think if you know, you know. But a lot of R&B, a lot of house, a lot of soul, of my Black American roots particularly. So things I experienced growing up, things I remember. I mean, yeah. Just so much of that genre, of those genres, I guess. And Oscar has very different tastes, which but also reflects a lot of my Caribbean roots as well. Mm-hmm. And Oscar's Caribbean roots. Yeah. And also experiences growing up in New York City, going to college in New York, and also in Canada. I think a lot of that reflects in your music as well.
Yeah, definitely. And being Honduran.
Yeah.
I just like club music, you know? So then there's also intersection with house, disco, the house and disco that you love as well. And that's where we meet as well. I always just tell people, I just like club music. I like something with a beat and a good drum and bass.
I love that you guys have talked about conflict and how you get through it, because it is so hard to work with someone. And you guys have basically been friends as long as you've worked together.
Yeah.
And that can be challenging. Is there a recent conflict that you got over, and how did you get through it? I feel like I'm doing a job interview right now.
We're really good under pressure. High stress situations. Actually, recent.
Or what's the most common thing that you feel like you argue about? Is it lineups?
It's lineups, and it's always kind of here's the slot and what person would make sense in it. And we're coming at it from two different angles. Because sometimes one will be thinking about what's going on in the other rooms. Sometimes one will be thinking about oh, well, this person's on tour. So now we have to and the agent's in my ear buzzing. So we kind of might want to plug them in. And then the conversation might be yeah, but that, this person's too big for that room. And so there are all these considerations that are kind of getting filtered and processed over and over again. And it can get to the point where it's as a new point comes up, it's yeah, but that point still stands. And so at what point do you make a decision? I think it was right. It was sometime after COVID, but I had a realization where it was oh, there's no ego here. We're actually we both just want this best version of this night, this 1 hour even sometimes. And we have different visions for it. And I think sometimes it can be hard, but you have to kind of crack that outer shell to be okay, why am I having this really intense reaction? And it's because oh, well, it might be something similar that went a certain way 7 years ago that I've just held on to forever. And then you look for it, you find that you're oh, that's what this is. And you can just toss it. I don't need to carry that around or throw that in your face, subliminally all this time later.
So emotionally mature.
Oof, it's years of therapy, man.
Years of therapy. Every Tuesday, 11 a.m.
Literally.
This couch.
Yeah.
I'm imagining your therapist hearing about your lineups.
Oh my God, totally.
Yeah. And then Mo wanted Juliana Huxtable. But
Oh God.
I think another thing that comes up in our conflicts a lot, I think, is prioritizing the workload and prioritizing prioritizing our next projects. I think there was something recently that Mo really wanted to do, and he was like, but you haven't, like, you don't listen to me when I bring this up. Like, why don't you want to do this? And I was just like, honestly, it didn't even occur to me how much you wanted to do it, even though you had brought it up multiple times. But sometimes it gets lost in the day-to-day. And we have so much, like, kind of like all those little boring things that I was saying earlier. We have so much of that on our day-to-day that priority often falls on that. So when it comes to curation and the bigger sort of like creative projects that we can do, unfortunately, they kind of take a back seat.
Yeah. And even this, for example, I brought it up in the middle of Pride Month, like, oh, I really want to do this thing. And it's like, cool. We have like all these contracts to fill out, like all these people to pay, all these like I had artwork to do. Like maybe put that down for a second and focus on what's already on your plate.
Right.
Yeah.
I think maybe a lot of these conflicts happen because you're working within such a huge space. Sometimes when I go to Papi Juice, it almost feels like a mini festival because you are like going in between like all these little rooms and like all these different energies and different vibes on each dance floor. So yeah, I'm curious to know like how throwing a party, like how that has changed since your elsewhere residency. I mean, I'm sure so much has changed, but yeah, that's a very open-ended question.
So we had a bit of a low point, I think, before we actually started elsewhere. And that, I think, was one of the moments where we were all like, oh, I don't know if this will keep going anymore. It was in our 4th year. And then elsewhere opened, and we sent an email, and we were like, hey, we're this party, like, would you let us do a night here? And it was after our low point, and we weren't really sure, but we were like, okay, let's do it. And the lineup was actually so iconic. It was like LSD, XOXO, Bambi, Rio Bamba. And then we also had our friends from Bubble Tea, the AAPI Plus collective, and they took over the other room, the smaller room. And so it was like our first time back. It was our first time in such a huge space. But from that first night, we were like, oh, okay, no, we're doing this. Yeah, like we're going to keep doing this. Like this was so telling. And then the party's grown ever since. We were, at that point, one of the first parties at Elsewhere with the highest attendance that first year that they opened. And we've been like the most consistent kind of like resident there since then. That is 2018.
Yeah. So often we'll find one person took a chance on us, like one booker. We'll be like, okay, yeah, I think you guys can do it. And we'll just kind of, I mean, I think at every place we've had a residency, someone just kind of handed the keys over. From One Last Shag to Baby's Alright to Elsewhere. And so it's,
yeah. No, sorry.
I lost it.
It was just like, yeah, like you were saying, like it was just like one person that kind of like took a risk with us, or not, I mean, definitely paid off the risk, but like what they saw as a risk, you know, came with like a really high reward in the end. But it's usually, there's usually someone that sees what we do and values it inherently, which is really nice.
Yeah. We've also been really careful about growth. Like we never want to scale up just for the sake of scaling up. Every venue we've had the opportunity to do so and jump into the next biggest pond. But I feel like we've resisted it, much to a lot of people's disagreement and a lot of dismay, particularly when it comes to this, a line down the block when it's like a night you want to enter. But I don't know, not everything is about like a bigger space just because we can. With bigger spaces comes like different motives and different teams. We love our teams that we work with. If anything, the trend over the last few years has been that we're diving into smaller spaces and really exploring and having the best time. And I think like Papi has become this kind of like really fluid texture that will kind of fill up whatever space we put it in. And that's been really fun. I love hearing people have like like, oh, I love when Papi's at Good Room. Like, I love when Papi's at Nowadays. Like, that's such a fun thing to hear.
And you really make the space yours when, I really do feel like you like activate spaces, because I'm really forgetting the small room and elsewhere. What is that called?
Zone 1?
Zone 1. Zone 1. I was going to say room 1. Zone 1, I remember being there and like forgetting where I was because you guys had like these like streamers and like you just, you like put in the work to make each space yours, I think. So that's really cool.
Thank you.
We have like a dedicated team of set designers, and they are so intertwined with like the work that we do now. Like it's always like when we're thinking about an event anywhere, we're gonna think about what it looks like and how do we make it so that people know that it's ours, you know, and so that people know that they can feel comfortable here because we're here. It starts with Mohammed's art, you know, as soon as they see Mohammed's art, they know that it's a Papi Juice event. And then I think it continues on with the lineups and then even the staff at the door, security at the door, and then from what the space looks like.
I'm so glad you mentioned Mohammed's art because I wanted to talk about that. You know, what you're doing is, you know, it's culture archiving. It's like archiving queer nightlife. And you shared something really interesting that I don't think a lot of people know about your artwork. Can you tell us about, what's inspiring each flyer?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely the crowd and like the people is the main inspiration. And you can actually see it. I had the hardest time making work for us during COVID, just because I wasn't with the people. And some of the hardest time making work, I think maybe similar for y'all, playing music without a crowd in front of you. But the way I look at it now is that like each poster essentially stands for like a night that actually happened. And if you look at any pull anyone from the last 100 and you can see who was playing, who was making work at the time, who was hosting when we still had hosts, venues that are not around anymore. So it becomes this kind of like time capsule that hopefully can exist for a long time and just kind of shows that, you know, the last 12 years of a slice of Brooklyn nightlife. Obviously not comprehensive. And we've always said this has never been a comprehensive project or catalog of queer and trans people of color. It's just like a snapshot. Like you know, you might see someone in the background. Like that's kind of the vibe. And yeah, I feel like the art has this kind of responsibility to sort of uplift and almost like I think I said fossilized this night almost perfectly. And you can I remember that set. I remember I was dating this person during this set. I remember like, you know, I met my best friend on this night. Like that's kind of what I want these to be beacons of.
That's really cool. Can you tell me about being included in the Stonewall exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum?
Yeah, totally. Huge honor.
When was that again?
I want to say 2019. Yeah, and it was really cool because when I was talking to the curators, we were able to have them list both Papi Juice and myself as artists. And that was really important to me because, you know, like the artwork that's there, like this is a collective. We make that work together. I finish art, I send it over to Oscar, he gives me feedback. I show it to Adam, he gives me feedback. Like it's just like a really beautiful loop of work. Also, that lineup is the lineup that we were fighting over. And that work is kind of represented on that poster too. It's the final version that got out the door. And it's the day of the launch. It's like the emails with the venue about like, hey, we're gonna launch at this time. These are the number of tickets. Like all of that is kind of there. So that was really important to me. And of course, the cohort of artists we were featured with in that show was really special. And I'm from New York, so anytime like Proclamation, like city museums, like these kind of things are milestones for me. Right. I feel like, okay, you know, this you mentioned earlier, like doubting, like when you have doubts, these are the moments where I'm like, okay, I can pause the doubt for another week.
Yeah. So I want to go back to my Facebook snooping. In,
No.
in this photo album, I was kind of shocked. I don't know. I wasn't shocked, but I was just like, wow, there are really so many faces that I see to this day that I know that are DJing like across the world, that are throwing their own parties, that I just see out at other queer parties. And I'm curious if you feel like you provided some kind of blueprint for queer nightlife, like I guess like post tens, if you like recognize that people were very inspired by you.
I have a hard time saying that specifically, that people were inspired by us, because I strongly believe that we weren't the first to do what we do. Like, we exist in a continuum of and legacies of beautiful people working in nightlife and for queer people. And so I think, yeah, maybe in the 2010s we did have like a little bit of influence. Love being the pink print, but you know, like, like it's interesting. I think, you know, we always say this, there's no sort of plan, or there's no sort of like path for us to take, because what we do is so experimental and it's so our own that there's no sort of, there's never been like a map of us like trying to figure out what we're doing. It is hugely, hugely humbling, and every day it fills me with gratitude to know that people see the work and are inspired by it. That's way more than I could have ever asked for in this, because to me at the beginning it was almost like a selfish dream that I had. From when I was a little kid, I always wanted to be in a room full of people that looked like me, that had some similar political values, that had some artistic, you know, delineations that were similar to mine. And so to do this now and to have it be reflected in people is really just so humbling. It makes me emotional thinking about it, for sure.
I'm curious if there's anything that you're excited about coming up that you'd like to share with everyone.
We have so much happening.
One thing.
We can all say one thing.
I mean, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I'm excited about, honestly, Whole Festival in July. I've never been to Germany, and I'm super pumped to play with these guys and with those guys over there. Yeah.
And so much New York fam is going to be there. Worldwide fam. So I'm really excited about that too. Yeah. That's not my answer though. What's your answer? Okay, it's kind of a non-answer. I hope you don't mind. But we took July off for the first time ever. And I'm really excited about like what it means for us to just like take a step back in the middle of summer. And I mean, literally August 1st, we hit the ground running again. But we made like a really conscious decision to take one thing off the calendar. And I didn't get it at first. And when we talked about it, I was like, you know what? Yeah, hell yeah. Like, let's do it. And I feel like it's like the perfect time to pause and go do some things, see some sets. Like, oh, well, I guess Whole is in the middle of July, so that doesn't actually count. But this is kind of the eternal.
Oh, wait, so you're playing Whole.
Yes. Yeah, we're playing Whole Festival in July, so I guess this actually doesn't really count. But
then we're going to see some
aside
friends
from
too.
July 19th, or July 20th, I think it's the 21st, 20th, we are not working the rest of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually such a perfectly me answer. Like, that does count as work. Yeah.
I mean, there's like so much for me. I think, you know, really excited about Volume 100. I feel like that's so major for us.
Yeah.
really excited about.
Wait, sorry, and 101 2 days later.
Yeah.
It's like such a gag.
Yeah, 100 and 101. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this summer, actually, we're the resident curators at Little Island. So we have every other, like essentially every weekend in the month of August and one weekend in September, we're programming their nights there on Little Island, which I think will be really iconic. I love doing things in public spaces, and especially things that are open to everyone and all ages and free. So that's really exciting. I think we're also, been working on a book for years. And
Tell us about the book.
the book is like my worst enemy, but it's also like my biggest sort of like driving force. So but it is, there's so much of the reason how we came up with it was that there's so much of ourselves that exists online. And I think it was really important for us to finally have something that was physical, that was concrete, that was in like people could hold and like flip through in their houses without having to pull up a screen. Because like you said earlier, like when you open Instagram, it's like, oh, okay, what did I come here for? Like 10 seconds later, you're on your 20th reel. Like it's like, no, brain rot. Like, I don't want this. But so the book is essentially going to be a collection of all of Mohammed's artworks. We have an archive of over 5,000 photos. So there's a lot of editing that needs to happen. And then we want to find ways to collaborate with all of the different people that we've worked with in the past years too. So maybe solicit some playlists, recipes, essays, different things like from people, just anybody, that wants to contribute to this testament of the work that we've been doing over the last 12 years.
It's incredible. I'm excited for it to happen.
Same.
Yeah, might be hitting you up to write a little piece or two.
Ooh, I would love that.
Yeah, we love you writing. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks so much, guys. It was such a pleasure speaking to y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great
Happy
questions.
Pride.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Yeah. And go Zoran.
Yes.
Yes.